Well, so here at Rands Trucking, we specialize in driver assist and multiple drop freight. We travel all throughout the entire 48 states as well as Canada. We can go into every province in Canada. We also have all over-the-road equipment, 53-foot dry vans, no flatbed, no reefers, but that allows us to specialize in this one niche of a marketplace, and it really has secured our place as a premium carrier within that sector of the market.
Yeah, currently we have 151 trucks, 440 trailers, and we also have a logistics division, so if our assets can't cover your freight, we can also move the freight with our logistics company.
So at Rands, one of the things that I value is the fact that our drivers are comfortable and willing to do multiple stop, and same with our operations group. Very engaged in looking at routing and what makes sense from both a miles and a timing standpoint. Starting to find a lot of customers that drop a lot of their freight in the LTL space simply because of size. There isn't necessarily a thought process around, could this freight be consolidated? And I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that our peers in the truckload industry, they just don't want to do multi-stop in truckload environment. Drivers typically find that very, very off-putting, and our drivers don't. So I think from a standpoint of looking at truckload consolidation and LTL freight, we actually have a niche in the industry where we can actually save some customers some money operating multi-stop truckload for freight that would normally go LTL. And the two other big advantages of that, we don't handle the freight as much as an LTL company would, so it reduces potential claims. And generally we can handle it faster from a transit standpoint because we're not having to offload, consolidate, and reload.
Yeah, correct. You're not going warehouse to warehouse to warehouse to make your deliveries, and then a week and a half later the customer sees their product. We can cross the entire country in about 5 days time if you're going from Massachusetts down to LA.
Yeah, I would agree. Plus, I think the other thing there is if they would look at using one carrier instead of several carriers, that you're going to have somebody you can talk to consistently and form that partnership with that one carrier instead of using multiple carriers on the LTL.
I think the other advantage is drop trailers. A lot of the LTL carriers don't want to provide drop trailers just because of that consolidation piece. Well, for us, you're still buying the entire trailer. We're not going to co-load. We're not going to go out and put somebody else's product on your trailer. We can drop that trailer, let you load at your convenience, and you're not pulling people off the line of their normal duties to load an LTL truck, which you might have to do 10, 15 times a day, depending on your product mix.
Correct. And when we have some customers that we work for, they'll work all week long, produce their product, and then on Friday they'll load the truck. You have all your resources allocated to your manufacturing and producing, and then you just allocate it towards the end of the week to fill the truck.
I agree.
So one of the things that we've had a couple customers reach out to us asking, if we can help them with their LTL consolidation, and what I see in almost every one of those customers, there just isn't a hard, fast line that says LTL is better than truckload. And I think that's one thing I've seen over the last probably 6 months is if you're shipping LTL, you should consider truckload. Unless you're shipping a box at a time, there should be at least a look at truckload just to compare.
I agree.
I think there's a lot of advantages again in the timing and the claim structure and I don't think the rates are generally, as long as you have freight going to the same general geographic area, you can generally actually save some money on that truckload space.
Yeah, definitely worth looking at, because all the large shippers we work with, they always complain about all their damage that they have to ship LTL and the amount of claims that come back from the LTL, and they don't have claims on the total load side.
Sure, and let's be fair, quotes are free. Worst case scenario, if you request a quote, you're going to get good news. You either have a good deal already or you're going to get a better deal with us.
Yeah, completely agree. When it comes to looking at the rates of LTL versus truckload, I think that the best way that a carrier is going to find that a customer is going to find to ship their product is it's going to be cheapest per unit, if you want to call it that, by sending it per truckload. As long as that truck is filled completely up, you're going to fit as much product on it as you can. A truck can scale about 45,000 pounds worth of weight, and the dry vans, they're 53 feet long, 100 inches, about 100 inches wide, 110 inches tall. You got a lot of cubic feet in there that you can fill up, and as long as a customer's taking that opportunity to fill that trailer up, your transportation cost per item that you're producing is going to be much lower.
Sure. And I would also say LTL, if you're not loading on pallets and if everything's kind of scattered in a trailer and you're loading by strapping it in, it makes a difference in the type of equipment that you're hauling your freight on as well. I mean, all of our trailers are 16-inch logistics posts instead of 48-inch on center, so you don't lose all that extra space in the trailer. You can fill that truck out more and probably get an extra 12 feet per trailer by using 16-inch instead of 48-inch on center. So the type of equipment that it's hauled on makes a large difference as well.
This conversation, I think, leads into one of the values of working with Rands compared to a lot of other carriers, right? we've seen over the last probably 3 years with the pandemic, with rates jumping in a very quick way and then decreasing in a very quick way, right? I think a lot of customers look at cost savings as being just a function of rate, where if you work with a carrier long term and you develop a partnership, I would argue that the better way to reduce rate structures or reduce cost is outside of just rate, is looking at your damage ratios, right? What kind of equipment is your carrier providing? How are they handling your freight? How full are your trailers? When you're buying a full truckload, or even an LTL, are you maximizing the space that you're spending? Just like you said, I think you can also then look at efficiency. How are we utilizing trailer resources? Do we have drop trailers? Are they always available when we need them, so we're not delaying people and wasting time waiting for resources to show up? And then how are our receivers handling the unloading? Is there detention? What can we do to mitigate that detention? Are there potential drop trailers? Is it a timing issue? I think when you have a partnership with a carrier that's willing to work with you on that, you can see a lot of cost savings without ever having to hurt the carrier or the rate relationship with the market.
Correct. Yeah. And having a good tight relationship with a carrier and a customer is very key. You can work with them on routing. If a customer has certain requirements where you have to be at that customer at certain hours, you can absolutely accommodate for that. And it really allows you to help your business, help your customer's business, and grow together.
Yeah, we've seen that, I think, with customers that we work with, just having a 15-minute meeting every Monday morning, going over the freight for the week, how we can combine different loads, check the routing, go over what the footage is per trailer. You can cut down on a lot of your costs just by reviewing that once a week.
I think there's also some risk when you look at brokers in network, and certainly recognize there's a place for brokers in our industry. They've been around forever. They probably will always be around. And again, we own our own logistics group, so certainly recognize they bring value to the industry. One thing I would throw out there, though, as a concern, when we're working with customers, especially on the asset side, although I do think we look at this the same way on the logistics side, we know our drivers, we know how we hire, we know the qualifications, we know how we train, we know how we work with them. There's something to be said about having confidence when a customer comes over the wall and gives us freight. We know how it's going to be handled because we've trained the driver and we've worked with them and we have a relationship there. I think you lose that with a lot of brokers, and I think a lot of customers really should be asking brokers right now today, how are you sourcing your capacity? Are you just posting freight on a load board? Are you just hoping that you get a random carrier that will come across the wall and pick up your freight? Even brokers who will tout this idea of building carrier relationships, we see this on our side of the world. Very rarely will we haul the same lane or for the same customer with a broker multiple times. And I think when you have customers who have a lot of their freight spend in the broker side of the world, they're horribly exposed to the spot market, and they don't necessarily realize that because they have contracts with their broker.
Correct.
But you can have all the contracts with your brokers, but if they're still going out to the spot market and getting capacity off that spot market, those customers are exposed to the spot market. They just are.
Right. No, that's exactly right. A lot of times, that chart we were looking at today, 400 carriers going out of business this week and last week just because the market's so tough for carriers right now. Well, if these brokers are using essentially some of these bottom feeder carriers and they just keep dropping off and dropping off and dropping off, yeah, your freight might get moved for cheap until they're gone. And then it's on the other shoes on the other foot, and now you got to pay.
Well, the same thing's happening in the market with the brokers.
Agreed, yeah.
Brokers going out of business as there is trucking companies in today's environment.